The G8 leaders have failed to do what is necessary, which is to cut emissions by 50% by 2050 compared to 1990 levels. This was often described as a little spat between Germany and the US, but in reality those cuts are what science tells us are necessary if we are going to avoid dangerous climate change and avoid putting billions at risk, for example, of water scarcity. So that the leaders of the G8 countries have failed to set clear targets and to commit themselves to take leadership, as they have caused most of the climate change we face today, is a real failure.
Any of your colleagues around here, another NGO that I could ask about the climate reached on climate change?
From Japanese perspective, I didn't imagine that the Japanese government could accept that proposal by the European Union, because we did so many researches with Japanese officials, but we had so many interviews, but they denied that it's just a fantasy of the European countries. But finally they accepted, at least here. So I think it could give a strong message to Japanese domestic policy as well.
And kind of a reaction and your take on the
Japan has a special obligation for other Asian countries to take a leadership to show them that we are doing our efforts to combat with global warming.
It's a big step that Bush is saying he's willing to engage in multilateral diplomacy. It's a small step in that concretely all the declaration amounts to is saying that we will start negotiating a new agreement. It doesn't commit the group to any specific target. It merely says that it will consider some of the ambitious targets that have been on the table, including the proposed target of halving emissions by the year 2050. So there's no guarantee about what's going to come out of this process. I think there's no conceivable way that there will be a binding commitment before the end of the Bush administration. So the best case is that talks will be begun and that they will be continued by the successor. So in a way, the Bush administration is getting an easy way out on this one. Because it's promising to engage in talks, it's not promising to undertake specific actions.